roasting hot. Put your pork in and cook it for 20 minutes. Your crackling will be golden and beautiful. But to cook it on the inside, what we need to do is then turn our oven down to 170 degrees Celsius. Then we let it cook nice and gently so the inside stays moist and juicy. Now all we need to do is check it with a digital thermometer, and we know when it gets to 72 degrees Celsius on the inside, our pork will be perfect. Moist, juicy, tender, and wrapped in a beautiful layer of crispy, golden crackling. There could be nothing better, could there? Now I'm going to put this pork in the oven. No more talking, time for action. Now in my family we would call roast pork porchetta. Now to make it a sort of more Italian dish, I'm going to do something that's very close to home, something my grandmother would have made, my nonna. It's borlotti beans braised with some vegetables and some tomatoes. A very simple dish, and it starts with a clove of garlic. And I give it a smash like this. Whoa, the garlic goes everywhere. And all I need to do is give it a quick rough chop like this. Now into my pot, which has got a little bit of heat underneath it, about a medium heat, I pour in a nice little dollop or splosh of olive oil, because we love olive oil, don't we? Now I don't want it too hot, otherwise my garlic will burn. So hear that, just gentle sizzle, that's all I want. The garlic will be infused into the oil. Now it's time to layer it up. And what I'll do is I'll get my onion like this, and I'll cut some nice big chunks straight through the middle here like this. This is a very rustic dish, so it doesn't matter if your onions are really sort of chunky, it doesn't matter at all. My onions go straight into my pot there. Now I've got a rosemary stalk that I picked from outside. You can pick it if you want, but I just throw it in like that, along with a bay leaf from my bay leaf tree. Throw it in like that, as simple as that. A little sprinkle of salt and a little twist of pepper, and I can smell the flavours are coming together already. Now I've got these beautiful fennel seeds, and if you remember I use ground fennel in the porchetta. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple of fennel seeds in here. And as these cook, they'll soften up, but you'll get that beautiful sort of fennel aniseed flavour will go all the way through this dish. Now all I need to do is just give that a little bit of a stir. Put a little bit more heat because I want it to actually cook a little bit quicker now. And I've got some basil leaves. Now a lot of people like to chop their basil leaves. For me, I just like to throw them in like this. Now you can see I add the herbs in at the beginning. I like beautiful herbs in at the start, and you start to get that flavour. But here's the tip, I also put a lot of herbs in at the end, and I'll save some herbs for that. Pull off the stalks, because the stalks are still quite bitter. Now the other thing I'll add is some celery. Make sure I give it a really good wash, and cut it down the centre here like this. And just take that part off there, all the way down through the centre. And what I get when I cut it are these beautiful little squares. So the vegetables, as I add the vegetables, they sort of layer up and give a good texture as well. And I get great shapes out of my vegetables. And all I do is throw my little bit of celery straight into the pot there like that. Look at that, one little stir. I've got such lovely flavours in here. And I think if you're cooking simple food, as you're cooking it, the flavours start to get better and better the more things you put in there. Now I've got this lovely carrot that I've peeled. Cut that in half like that, straight through the middle there like that. And I cut it into thirds all the way through here like this. And this will give me little shapes that are about the same size as the celery that'll cook in the same time. And all I do is just cut straight through the middle here like this. And look at that. It looks almost the same, doesn't it? Throw this straight into the pot here like this. And why not? Just a little more salt in there, just to bring out the flavour. Now all I need to do is let that simmer for a little bit and let it soften up. We call this sweating, because we sweat it down and all the vegetables start to soften a little bit and all the flavour comes out of it. The next thing I've got are these Roma tomatoes. And all I do is cut them in half like this and cut them in smaller pieces. And all I'm going to do is chop them up and get nice little chunks. Now if you wanted to, you could take the skin off the tomato and remove the seeds. But for me, if you chop it up like this, that's all you need to do. You know, you can get really precious with it, but this is a rustic style dish. This is what my grandmother would have cooked. And she didn't take the skin off the tomatoes. Of course, unless she was making sauce. And just give that a lovely stir. Look at that. The tomato will break down and become a nice part of the sauce. Now the next thing, of course, are the borlotti beans. Now peeled some of these beforehand, but look at these borlotti beans. A beautiful purple shell. And all you do is just carefully peel the outside. This is what I did when I was a kid. I'd sit around my family's kitchen and we'd have a big pile of beans like this, and my job was to pod them. Out they come like this. There's nothing better than fresh beans. They have an almost meatiness to them that I love the most. Straight into the pot here like this. Give that a stir around. Now we need to boil the bologna beans. We need some moisture in there. So what I've got is some white wine. About half a cup of white wine in there. Up to you. You can just use water. You can use stock. And I've got some water here. All I do is pop that in there. Enough to just cover the bologna beans. Just stir that around. And the bologna beans will soak up the juices. They'll soak up the water and the wine. And they'll be delicious. But just one thing is, I know I put a bit of salt in there before, but don't put too much salt in your beans. You can always put a bit at the end. It makes them tough. But I know these fresh beans are nice and tender, and they'll be beautiful, sweet, and as I said before, meaty. My beans are cooked beautifully. They're nice and tender. My pork is resting just on the outside of the oven. When I put my digital thermometer into the centre of the pork, it read 72 degrees Celsius, and that's how I knew my pork was cooked perfectly. It's going to be delicious. Now my parsley, nice and roughly chopped, straight into my beans like this. Turn the gas off, just give it one little stir around, and the fresh flavour of that parsley will go all the way through it. Look at it looks fantastic. Now all I need to do is get my pork out of the oven. Resting nicely for about 20 minutes or so. I'll pop it straight on here. And it's going to be nice and hot, so I'll be very careful. It's a bit hot. Now this is the bit where you can call me Dr. Adrian, because I have the cure for vegetarianism and that almost terminal illness, veganism. My God, imagine having that. Off comes the string here like this, because what could be better than if you're suffering from those ailments? A lovely piece of crackling. Listen to that. Oh, look at that. Beautiful, moist, juicy pork. How could you be a vegetarian? My goodness. Straight through there like that. Look at the garlic there, the herbs, the moisture, the juiciness, the steam. All I need now is a spoon of these lovely beans that remind me of my grandmother when I was a child. The perfect accompaniment to a beautiful porchetta. Down goes my plate, and then on goes my beautiful piece of pork. What else does it need? Maybe just a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Look at that. Look at the shine. And there's no talking anymore about it. Here we go. Straight through the middle there. I'm going to go straight to this loin here. Beautiful. Look how tender it is. This is sensational. All I need to top it off